Greetings from Berkeley, California, located just across the bridge from San Francisco. This is Janet Delaney, and I'm happy to be able to share a book that I made with Mack in the fall of 2018, titled Public Matters. It's my second book with Mack. I published South of Market in the fall of 2013. Both books are built from photographs I made in the 1980s. As I was completing the South of Market project, I moved to a different neighborhood of San Francisco, the Mission District, which was just a mile away. This was a busy time for me. I was finishing up graduate school and getting my career started. Here I am in my 3-room house. I was teaching photography at the university and working as an editorial photographer. So my days were full, but on the weekends, I would photograph various marches and protests and parades. Ronald Reagan had just been elected president in 1981, and he was busy rolling back all of the progressive agenda of the 1960s and 70s. We were furious. When Donald Trump became president in 2017, I realized I had a story to tell from the photographs I'd made in the 1980s that would be possibly relevant to our current political time. I began to sort through the hundreds of slides and 2 1/4 negatives that I'd made of people parading and protesting or just hanging out on the streets, living their lives out in the public. I could see that the photos showed a San Francisco that really welcomed immigrants, that embraced a queer community and rallied against Reagan's tax cuts for the wealthy. Eventually, the image sequences began to take shape, and I could see the book coming into its own. So we went on press in Italy, and here's the book in hand. So I'd like to take you on a tour of how we created the narrative structure of Public Matters. A book is not just a collection of individual photographs, but rather I see it kind of as a musical score of ideas that flood together to create a whole story. I want to make a disclaimer though. Public Matters is really perhaps more of a poem than a treatise on social and political conditions of the era. I wasn't actually thinking I was making a book when I made these images in the 1980s. I was just out making photographs. So it was really a question of mining my archives to create this narrative. The title came easily, Public Matters. Erin O'Toole of the SF MoMA and I were just tossing out ideas. She's been a longtime supporter, and I really always appreciate her input. She hit on this one, and I just sort of grabbed it as a perfect fit. Then the cover fell into place as easily. In this image, the act of watching or viewing or looking out really becomes the subject of the photograph. And it really represents how I see myself as a witness to what was happening in that time. The book opens with an image of a woman on a stage. So we know a story is going to be told. After the title page comes an image of men looking at a movie poster, which really leads you into the idea that it's going to be a visual story. Possibly somewhat fictional, but hopefully entertaining. My idea is to take you through a few of the sequences of the book of 80 images, not show you the whole thing, but just show you pieces to explain how or why the photos are juxtaposed with one another. In reviewing the images I made in the 1980s, I saw I had been really fascinated with how people represented their gender. This image moves from one about gender, it's a young man who's dressed as a Girl Scout, and it also becomes one about protest. But the protest is interesting in that it is about Central American wars. The sign says cookies, not Contras. So the reference is to the ongoing opposition to the U.S. government, who supported the war against the newly formed government of Nicaragua, which was raging throughout the 1980s. From here, I move to an image of young Latinos parading as members of the ROTC, or the Reserve Officer Training Corps. I placed a group of people looking anxious in response to that image on the right. And then I followed it with one of dancers, maybe to offer a moment of release. But it might be more complicated than that. Another through line that I found incorporated photographs of financial transactions. I followed this 9 or 10-year-old girl around for quite a while as she tried to decide what to do with her $1. I think she was also taking care of 2 younger siblings and trying to make the money go as far as it could. I have a number of pictures of her. There's the intrigue of shiny objects at the carnival or the pawn shop. At first, it was hard for me to sort of separate these different places up, or rather to juxtapose these places, such as the carnival, the street, the parade, the protest, rather than keeping them siloed. This is a protest. These are all the pictures in the carnival. I found there was a great deal of power and energy when I started to kind of mix them up and cut them together. All these things are happening at the same time, you know. So I follow the image of the pawn shop with a sense of suspicion, and then an image of white men in suits, or perhaps at least the illusion of that. Map pictures followed by actual men in suits, which at the time was the required attire of a car salesman. They seem really awkward in their presentation. And a car sales place gets followed by a bus. Who takes the bus? In a way, this image sort of represents that idea of people of color moving out of San Francisco, leaving, as they have been in great numbers, as the city starts to become a place of wealth and extreme poverty. For me, these 2 images really represent the 1980s very well. On the left is a newly established heart of the city's farmers market. This was seen as a grassroots, community-based event serving a part of town that didn't have a grocery store. The shoppers are extremely diverse. They come from all parts of the city. They're Indian, Black, White, Latino, Asian. And then juxtaposed with that is an image that captures old school San Francisco shopping district with the Pioneer Market and Kitty's Restaurant. This image of a young mother from Tibet sits well with the idea of protesting against bombing. I mean, during the 1980s, immigration into San Francisco was at its height. People came not only to escape the civil wars of Central America, but also from Southeast Asia and Russia in numbers that had not been as high as this since really Ellis Island era. As I was constructing these sequences and editing the images together, really looking for haikus, I was thinking about the current state of San Francisco and the Mission District in particular. This area is experiencing a massive transformation brought on by the high cost of living in San Francisco. The longtime residents are being pushed out by tech workers whose wages afford a much higher rent. It's a familiar story. The local community, though, is strong and it's working hard to maintain a sense of neighborhood. The cultural diversity is just what the newly arrived tech workers are looking for, so there's really a great deal of irony and strife in the air. I mean, it's a tough embrace. And people are being squeezed. This image is near the end of the book, and I really think I came to a slow, sad finish. It's been a tough time in San Francisco, and I'm not sure what will happen now with the quarantine and the coronavirus. Obviously, a lot of our ideas are going to be questioned and tossed out, and it'll be a whole new world when we're out of quarantine. But there's still a lot of diversity in the city, and there's a lot of issues to be resolved. I added my text for context to the end of the book, and it's really just a tale that tells what I was doing at the time. It starts with, to live comfortably in a city is to feel at home with strangers. And finally, 3 women watching. I self-published a pamphlet with an essay by Nathan Heller, who grew up near the Mission in the 1990s. He writes about the past in relationship to the current culture of San Francisco. He's often published in the New Yorker. He's a staff writer, so he knows the neighborhood well, and he knows the current issues. I thought it was a good way to tie this book into the present. I published it in English and Spanish, and I distributed it around in the many local independent bookstores where I placed copies of the book. The gallery where I showed the work is located in the Mission District. The book and exhibition had national and even international press, but I worked hard also to reach out to the local press, the community newspapers and the radio stations, to ensure that people who lived nearby would come to the events that we organized. It was actually a pretty impressive turnout. I love this guy's enthusiasm for the book. He had a tattoo of the local Mission Theater sign along with a bus. So he was thrilled to see the photo of almost the same scene in the book. Well, there were many moments where people found themselves or their friends in the images. Here's a fellow from the farmer's market. He's still there at the market. He's still wearing a hat. And he's holding up the book with his photo. The woman in the pink found herself. She came in from out of town just for the exhibition. She lives about 40 miles away now. And she was pretty thrilled to see herself there. And on the other side is a woman who's showing a photo of her cousins and her uncle. All of them have passed away now, too, from gunshot wounds. I placed one book out for people to write their memories, as a collective diary. I see this project as a family album of sorts, a way for those who knew this place in the past to remember it, and a way for newcomers to learn about where they have arrived. Here's the Mission Street in the 1920s, 30s. A few signs are still up. The Mission Theater, for one. I mean, cities change, but photography keeps the past alive in the present. I'm still photographing in San Francisco and hoping that the photographs I make will be around for a long time to come. Thank you very much for taking this tour with me, and I hope you get a chance to see the book in person. Take good care. Bye-bye.